Hi, everybody. Jeff Toyster here. We're going to talk today about how to improve by focusing on what's working, not what's going wrong, but what's working. And I'm joined today by a very special guest, Max Yoder. He's the co-founder and CEO of Lessonly and the author of a terrific book that I'm a big fan of called Do Better Work. I want to get this right: Finding Clarity, Camaraderie, and Progress in Work and Life. We're going to
Nailed
be
it.
talking about that quite a bit. Max, how are you today?
I'm doing great. This is going to be a lot of fun, and I appreciate you having me around, Jeff.
Well, thank you for joining me. And we're going to talk about the book, but I want to first talk about Lessonly.
Sure.
I was telling you a minute ago when we were doing our warm up. When I was a training director, I wish Lessonly was around. Unfortunately, I was a training director too long ago. We didn't have those kind of tools. Can you tell us just a little bit about what Lessonly does?
Yeah, I love hearing you say that. I wish we would have been around then. Well, I'm happy everything that went how it went, but I love the sentiment, which is, that you see the value. What we'd make is training software, but we specifically make that training software for customer service teams and sales teams. And we do that because they're at the front lines of customer communication, which means that the new promotions, the new processes, the new pricing, if they're not on the ball about how that works, if they're not clear about what to say and how to say it, as the world changes around them, it gets to be really challenging. And what we've seen is these teams also have really clear indications of success. On the customer service side, whether we're measuring a satisfaction score or a net promoter score, we can tie a behavior to outcomes, which is not always easy. Think about traditional training software. They're usually focused on human resources, largely doing compliance-focused stuff. It doesn't really thrill us. And there's also, it's kind of a separate bucket. There's usually like a revenue driving bucket and a cost savings bucket, and people kind of think that's it. But there's also a compliance bucket that is kind of a third bucket. It's kind of like we have to, and that's not really fun to be in this place if we have to, but we're not doing it because we have a goal. So we like sitting in areas where there's a goal, and customer service teams have clear goals, and it's just so fun to work with people who care deeply about taking care of other folks. So what we do with our software, to be really fast, is we make sure that you're learning what you need to learn. Then we're making sure we're giving you opportunities to practice what you've just learned. And practice is the linchpin of the world. There's knowing is trivial. I think we kind of prize and cherish the idea of knowing something, but it really only matters if you do the thing that you know. I could really give a hoot what you know. I care what you do with what you know. And the way that you build a behavior change, kind of from the knowledge of something needs to change to the behavior has been changed, is with practice. So we create tools where you can simulate an environment where you might be engaging with a customer. It might be a chat-based environment, a phone-based environment, or a video or kind of in-person environment. And then we give you ways to practice whatever it is that you want to get good at when it comes to engaging with that customer. So if you want to make sure that you're responding to things a certain way, you can simulate the interaction of talking to a customer. You can watch yourself do it, which is huge. I mean, Jeff, you're on camera a lot, so you see the benefit of seeing yourself do something and then kind of self-assessing and growing off that self-assessment. That's not something that a lot of people get the opportunity to do. Sometimes we even reject the idea of watching ourselves on video or listening to ourselves in an audio form because it just kind of irks us. But it's such an important thing to understand. Oh, that's how I sound. Because when you know how you sound, you can adjust and modulate, be clearer, drop certain things that aren't helpful in your conversation and add things that are. So anyhow, we give people ways to self-assess, and then we give them ways for their peers to kind of say, here's things that I love that you do, and here's things that maybe you don't know that you're doing that you might be able to improve on.
So one of the things I like about that approach is I discovered early in my career, I'm in a rare position in that I have a deep background in adult learning. I'm a certified professional in learning and performance, and I'm passionate about customer service.
Yeah.
I imagine you discovered that most of your clients don't have that deep background in training. And I love it even on your website, it says if you could write an email, you can create a training program. Let's help you do what you do best, which is customer service. And I think that's the theme of the book as well, right? Do better work. It's like, let's enable you to bring out your natural talents and do what you do best. So I want to dive into one specific element of the book, but can you kind of give an overview of the book and why you wrote it, who you wrote it for?
Yeah, thanks for asking, and I appreciate you so much taking the time to talk about it and to read it and just celebrate it. So the big idea behind the book was anybody on a team has the ability to create environments where better work is happening. And what I wanted to do is outline given behaviors that if you engage with those behaviors, if you do those behaviors, you're likely to bring more clarity and camaraderie to your team. Those two things are super important because when people are clear on what matters and why it matters and how to do it, and what role they play in kind of the pursuit of what matters, that's hugely influential. If I know where we're going, I know what role I play, I know what role you play, that's a big deal. And then if you add camaraderie to that, the other kind of big C in the book, camaraderie is all about mutual trust and respect. So if we know where we're going and we trust and respect one another, I ultimately argue we're going to make progress every time. A lot of the challenges that we face at work are very solvable. It just requires coordination. It requires accountability, and it requires alignment. So the behaviors in the book are not behaviors for managers. They're not behaviors for executives. They're behaviors for anyone. They are behaviors for managers and executives, but they're also behaviors for anybody on a team, because we can all create a tempo of more camaraderie and more clarity. And we can do it by asking clarifying questions, by highlighting what's working, which we're going to talk about today, by getting agreements. All of these things are available to all of us. And what I love about that is I think we sometimes forget how accountable we are to making progress. I think it's easy to point out at somebody else and say, they're accountable to making progress. They're not doing their job. I'm doing my job. Ultimately, we're all not doing our jobs in one way, shape, or form. And if we all take accountability to say, what can I control and am I controlling it? I can control asking clarifying questions. I can't control if you're clear. Right? You're out of my control. I don't have your joystick, but I do have my joystick. And with my joystick, I can ask clarifying questions to get more clarity. So just taking that accountability, is just so important. And we all are so fortunate in life to have these fully developed brains that we can use to create great outcomes in the world. So let's all take responsibility for that. The behaviors in the book are ways to do that. I tried to make them practical. I tried to make them easy to implement. And I just tried to focus them around how do we communicate more clearly, because that's what every good relationship is built on. Clear communication, which will give us camaraderie because we'll know and understand one another better. So we'll treat one another better, and we'll know where we're going because we're clear on what we need and why we're after whatever it is we're after.
I like how you're focusing on clarity. I've done a lot of research into high performing teams, customer focused organizations. And I will tell you that the one thing that sets apart the elite from the rest is that clarity. In the elite organizations, everybody understands what success looks like.
Yeah.
And in most organizations, if you go to your employees and say, hey, what does great service look like? You probably get a lot of terrific answers. They'll just all be different.
Yeah.
I'm wondering in your experience, why is it so difficult for organizations just to get aligned around what good looks like so we can achieve that clarity?
Yeah, if I had to guess, I think first and foremost, there's just a lot of assumptiveness on the organization that it's obvious what clarity looks like. Most of the folks in the organization have been there a while, and the newbies coming aboard, they forget that the newbie doesn't have that domain experience, that domain knowledge of, hey, I've seen what good looks like over and over again. So now it's almost intuitive to me, but it was not intuitive at the start, right? Intuition is an experiential thing. We're not intuitive coming out of the womb. We're intuitive because we've had experiences that build an intuition, which I think people misunderstand the idea of intuition a lot. And I was one of them for quite a long time, which it's not like it's innate in us. That's not intuition is. Intuition is experiential. Once we have enough experiences, we can then develop an intuition for what to do and what not to do. But before those experiences, we're going to lack that intuition. At that point, it's going to be guessing. So the moral of the story here is I don't think the organization is clear because it assumes that everybody just should know. And an alternative title to do better work could have been, they shouldn't just know.
That's it, right?
Anytime somebody's like, they should just know, I'm like, no, because the curse of knowledge is real. And the curse of knowledge is once I know something or you know something, we assume everybody else knows it too. And that's what's constantly happening in organizations. So with that, assuming people know, I think the other side of it is individuals who are coming into the company, they are not accountable to themselves for saying, I need more clarity. They just kind of roll with the punches of, I'm not getting a lot of clarity, so I'll start guessing. And of course, they're going to guess in ways that are optimal and suboptimal depending on the day. So I think it's, on both sides. There's assumptions coming in the door from the company, and there's a lack of maybe forward motion from the individual coming in the door saying, I need this, because they're probably looking around at everybody else who they're not asking for more clarity. And because nobody else is asking for it, we kind of presume it's the wrong thing to ask for, or we don't have permission to ask for it. So let's all change that tempo 1% at a time and bring more clarity to organizations.
So I think that ties in nicely to our main focus today, which is something that's a little bit different, I think, for most people who listen to this. When something's going wrong, the instinct is to focus on fixing what's wrong. And one of the things you talk about in the book is that we can often improve things, not by focusing on what's wrong, but by focusing on what's right. And I link back to that clarity. If this is what great service looks like, when we are providing great service, what are we doing?
Right, right.
And, how do we do more of that? So maybe we could kind of start with that basic premise. How do you focus on what's right versus what's wrong when our instinct is to look directly at what's wrong?
Yeah, you bet. The thing that really broke it open for me, there's a methodology called appreciative inquiry. I've been a big fan of appreciation because I saw just kind of organically how I brought the team together early on in Lessonly. We have You Art Awesome cards where people get to tell one another why they appreciate them as a teammate. And that just drives these really tremendous good vibes. And those cards were born out of one of our teammates who's an engineer who was like, hey, I want to give people praise, but I don't want to do it face to face. I'd rather kind of take the card, write it, and then drop it on a desk before somebody gets in and then be gone when they get the card. And I'm like, heck yeah. That's
like an awesome ninja.
Yeah, like you're awesome, but I don't want to be there when you know that I know when you find out that I tell you you're awesome. And I love that self-awareness from the individual of just being like, hey, I still want to do it, but here's the way that I'm going to do it. If I'm going to do it well, is I need a card. So we made cards, and we've gone through literally thousands of these cards now. That was at that time we were 7 people. Now we're 130 people. So these cards fly. Anyhow, moral of the story is I saw the natural benefits of that. And I was talking about it with one of our customers, and one of my customers was like, hey, you should read appreciative inquiry. You seem big into appreciation. Appreciative inquiry is this methodology. And you asked the question of how do we kind of stop looking for what's broken or with problems and spend more time looking for what's working? Well, appreciative inquiry is going to argue that you should ask yourself a simple kind of 2-part question. What's going well around here, and how do we do more of it? And I lay this all out in the book because I think it's just super, super important. What's going well, and how do we do more of it? What's working? How do we do more of it? Similar idea. When we start asking ourselves that question, we start scanning our environments for the things that are working. And if we're scanning for what's working, we're going to find it. If we're scanning for what's not working, we're going to find it. And our default state is to scan for what isn't working because we think problems are the only way to fixing problems is the only way to improve things. And this appreciative inquiry just spoke to me so deeply because I was living that state of what isn't working. What am I missing? And if I spend my time cycling on that question, I'm going to find a bunch of stuff that isn't working and is missing. I'm right now in a room where if I ask myself the question of what do I not like about this room, I'll find something. But why would I want to do that? Why would I want to focus on the things that aren't going well in this room? If I could focus on the things that are going well in this room, I'm going to find those things too. Cool thing about what's working, to your point, is once we highlight that, then people have a blueprint for what awesome looks like, for what good looks like. So if we look around our teams and we highlight what's working and we share it, what's going to happen is people who didn't realize that that was a good thing to do. Maybe I'm calling out Carly and I'm saying, hey, Carly, I watched you engage with a customer yesterday. I so appreciated how you took an interest in their whole person. You didn't just ask them about work, but you asked them about their kids and you remembered what they said and you listened when they were talking. And to make people feel heard is such a hugely important thing. And I share that not only with Carly, but the broader team. Now every other teammate has that example of what good looks like. When I speak to a customer, take an interest in them, ask them about their full selves because they're not just their job. But through Carly, I can highlight that I want other people doing that, and then they're going to do it. They're much more likely to do it. So highlighting what's working starts with asking what's going well around here and how do we do more of it, and then sharing what we find so that more people can start doing exactly that.
So one of the applications I see just on an individual level, to the example you just gave, is we're starting to see in the customer service world, particularly the contact center space, where instead of evaluating people just to, you did this well on a call or you did not do this well on a call, having people create their own benchmarks. Here's your awesome call or your awesome email standard. And we're going to listen to the next call and say, did it meet your own standard for greatness? Is that kind of what you're talking about in terms of like highlighting what's working?
I was not thinking that, but I absolutely love that. I love the idea of somebody just putting down on paper what good looks like on their own terms and then living up to it. Because I think to your point, like once we make an agreement with ourselves that this is what good looks like, we certainly want to get there. And if we've made that agreement ourselves, then we already have implicit buy-in that that we're going to do this, right? It's not kind of top down, handed down to me if this is what you need to do. So I didn't have that in mind. I would love to share that, Jeff, though, because I will share that with your permission because I just think it is excellent.
Absolutely, and I didn't come up with it myself. It's things that I'm starting to see contact centers doing it, the call or the interaction, whatever it is, still meets the standards. But going back to our earlier discussion about training and being able to
Yeah.
see yourself, you know, eventually training is you have to perform. And so to say
Yep.
that you've completed training, I have to deliver, let's say, an excellent call. Well, if I have audio of that and I have screen capture of myself doing everything right, then any other time I'm evaluating my own performance or my boss is evaluating my own performance, we can go back to that benchmark and like, here's when you did everything right that
Yeah.
meets our corporate standards. And let's compare how this call went compared to your benchmark. Were you enthusiastic? Were you friendly? Did you use the right procedures?
Yeah.
It becomes crystal clear, right? No guesswork.
Oh, amen. I love it. And I love the idea of having that individual self-assess instead of somebody coming and saying, you need to improve here, here, and here. It's so much easier for us to listen to ourselves. And oftentimes, you know, for better and worse, we're harder on ourselves than other people are, to say, hey, I really think I can do better there. And to self-diagnose, I think, again, you get that buy-in from the individual of, I'm going to go work on that because I was the one who said I wanted to go work on it. You know, it wasn't kind of top down handed to me to say, you need to go improve in these areas. That's never fun. That's never motivating. I might even dig my heels in under those circumstances and say, I don't want to. So I love the idea of just that self-assessment. You're on top of it. That's the idea of highlighting what's working. What do we like and how do we do more of it? Because as we do more of the things that we appreciate, we have less time to do the things that we don't appreciate. So the whole environment gets better the more time we spend doing the things that work, because we only have so much time in the day. So the more we're doing what works, the less time we're doing what doesn't work. That is simple, but it's profound. And you know, that is a relationship thing. Highlight what's working, you know, with your spouse, with your family member. If you have a tough situation with your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad, anyone, find something that you love about them. Share it with them. That is a bridge building exercise, and do it in a genuine way. Tell them why you love it. Tell them why you appreciate it. Because you can focus all day long on the parts of people you don't like. And guess what? They'll get bigger if you focus there. Or you can focus on the parts of people you do like. And we're all a mixed bag, right? You know, you and I, Jeff, on a given day, we're both mixed bags. There's things that we do that other people appreciate, and there's things that we do, like when I don't get enough sleep, I'm not nearly as sweet and kind as I want to be. And my wife, you know, that's something that it probably affects her more than anybody else. If I'm not getting enough sleep, it's not cool. I'm not the coolest guy in the world. So she helps me get good sleep, right? And she supports my good sleep. But she also, she gives me the time to focus on, she is really loving about the things that I do well, instead of focusing on, you know, there's sometimes when you don't get enough sleep and you're really grumpy. And I really love that. I love her for that.
So we've talked a lot about the individual level, and I know we don't have a lot of time left. So I want to ask you about the team or the organization level.
Sure.
Can this approach apply to improving a team's performance or even an entire organization's performance in terms of focusing on what's working?
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, I would love to know what you think based on our conversation today. I've done a lot of talking here today, Jeff.
You got a lot of passion, which is one of the things I appreciate about you. I'll tell you, for customer-focused organizations, one of the most fundamental things that customer-focused organizations do is we define what's called a customer service vision or customer experience vision. It's a simple statement that says, this is what great looks like.
Yeah.
And the most effective ones base that on what they're doing well. It's not purely aspirational where, you know, someday we're going to be amazing at this, but we never do it now. It's a reflection of when we're at our best, this is how we're serving customers. And it's an intention that, you know, we just want to be that best more often. And so that's an example that I've used in my own work. Creating customer service vision should be both aspirational, but reality based as well.
Yeah. And if you dig into appreciative inquiry, they have these things called the 4Ds, which is really about kind of forward thinking. What, you know, who do we want to be, and who are we at our best? And it's often rooted in reality, right? It's when we are optimally functioning, when we're the best possible team or the best possible individuals on a team. What's happening? You got your blueprint right there. You know, I tell people, if you want to see it, be it. And it's just basically a rewording of be the change you want to see in the world. Because, you know, when you say be the change you want to see in the world, everybody rolls their eyes and says, yeah, that's a bumper sticker, even though it's really, really good advice. You know, at this point, you've heard it too many times. So if you want to see it be, it's just a rephrasing of an old thing that maybe people might listen to. And the idea there is you already know what you want to see. like we already have this intuitive understanding of what we want to see more of, because we know what we don't want to see a lot of the times. And we also know we do want to see. So if you want to see more of it, go be it. And a lot of times, we can point at the highlights of our experience and say, that's the thing I want to see more of. I've seen somebody be it, or I've been it, and I want to do more of it. And that's how we improve anything.
Max, one of the things I really like is that you sent out, I think it's a weekly email.
Yeah.
Very personal email. It's not stylized or anything, but it's focusing on kind of one specific thing that you can do. Often they're tips pulled directly from the book.
Yeah.
Your experience as a leader. And if people are watching this, I would recommend that they find this email and sign up for it. How do they find out about the book, sign up for the email, et cetera?
Yeah, thanks for asking. And I'll tell you, it is a weekly email, and there's weeks when I'm like, you know what, if I don't have anything to share, I'm not going to share it. But almost every week it goes out. And if you want to sign up for it, you can do so at dobetterwork.com. So dobetterwork.com or lessonly.com. But dobetterwork.com has everything from links to the book, links to a video series where we talk about each chapter of the book. So if you kind of want to listen to that for free, it's very similar to a podcast. And you can listen. I interview different guests on each topic. And then also the weekly note sign up, which like you said, Jeff, it's just a plain text email. I write it. It's one of my favorite things to do. I highly encourage everybody to spend time, writing and reflecting, whether you put that in an email or not to anyone. It's not important. What is important is, that weekly email gives me time to reflect on something that I've learned. And when I reflect on it and when I process it, I learn from that processing and that reflection, and then I have it forever. I got this kind of this catalyzing all of these things that otherwise my brain is going to forget. I like to remind folks that we write down our to-do list, but we don't write down our most important thoughts or our most meaningful experiences. And it's like, you're telling me your to-do list deserves to be written down, but your most meaningful experiences, your most meaningful lessons don't. We assume that we have the steel trap, or we assume we don't have a steel trap. Either way, we don't do anything about the fact that we don't have steel traps. So anyhow, the weekly note is like when I get paid to reflect, and I just love that.
That's awesome. And again, if you're watching or listening to this interview, sign up for it. It's valuable. Get the book. I enjoyed it. It's an easy but very practical read.
Thanks,
Max,
Jeff.
thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
It was absolutely my pleasure, man. I had a lot of fun, if you could not tell. I love talking about this, and you were really fun to talk to it with. Talk to about. It's really fun to talk to you about it. So thank you, Jeff.
You bet.